In November of 1990, Senator McCain created the Blue Ribbon Committee that has been referred to previously, and it was chaired by John Munger. That committee forwarded 3 names to Senator McCain, and the individuals were Bobby Montiel, who is a friend of mine and a law school classmate and a judge in Santa Cruz County, Peter Economides, a top-notch litigator in this community with at least a statewide reputation, and myself. I was very fortunate to emerge from this excellent field. Now, in September of just a few months ago, I received, as I'm sure many of you are aware, a phone call from the President, and that was exciting. But just before I received that phone call, things seemed to be dragging on. And I came across an opinion written by my friend Noel Fidel, who couldn't be here today because he's interviewing for the Arizona Supreme Court. But Noel and I were in the Virginia Masters program together. And the case has a memorable name, and we'll all be able to remember this because it was State versus Superior Court. And in this opinion, Noel wrote, quote, "The Court of Appeals does not sit to second-guess the tough discretionary calls of frontline decision makers in the trial court." And I read that and I thought, I have to respond to this. So I wrote a note to Noel and I said, "Noel, if I ever get through the confirmation process, I am going to frame those words and put them on my chambers wall. If I never get through, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing right now." Judge Browning mentioned that through the very kind intercession of Senator DeConcini and Senator McCain and Congressman Colby, and I'm so honored to have Congressman Colby here today, and the federal bench here, and in particular Judge Browning, I received a hearing before the Judiciary Committee. I know that at least half of the people in this room offered encouragement to me while I was preparing to go back there. You know what you said to me. "I hope they're nicer to you than they were to Judge Thomas." And that certainly bolstered my confidence. I appreciate that. Also, 2 friends, former law professor Winton Woods, who I'm very honored to see here today, and Justice Robert Benham of the Georgia Supreme Court, who was also in the master's program with me, and who happens to be the first black to serve on the Georgia Supreme Court since Reconstruction, even offered to travel back to Washington to testify on my behalf before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Well, thank God it never came to that, but I appreciated the offer nevertheless. When I appeared before the committee, Senator McCain and Senator DeConcini and Congressman Colby all took time from a very pressing schedule at the end of the legislative session to introduce me to the committee. And that was very comforting to me and my family, and I was greatly appreciative of it. Senator McCain's words were exceptionally kind, and one of the things that he told the committee was, this is an individual of extraordinary intellect. Well, when he said those words, I was sitting next to Senator DeConcini, for whom I'd worked when he was Pima County Attorney. And when Senator DeConcini heard those words, he swung toward me and smiled and said, "John, whether it's true or not, it certainly is nice for the senator to say that about you." Without the help of so many of you here, family and friends and judges and attorneys, investigators, people like Linda Barber, who she probably hopes, I hope he's not going to change jobs again in another 4 or 5 years, as he seems to go through this cycle every so often. Ace Bushnell and Bill Kimball, Howard Cashman and Dick Kleindienst, to just name a handful of the many of you who have done so much and who were able to come here today. Also, there are a few that weren't able to be here. I understand that Sheriff Dupnik was not able to be here because he was recovering from surgery. And of course, George Meal died in a tragic plane crash last spring. But I'm grateful to all of them and to every bit of all of you for being responsible for me standing here today. It's a sobering and humbling experience to join a bench once occupied by 2 legends before whom I practiced, Mary Ann Ritchie and James Walsh. I mentioned about succeeding Judge Ben Birdsall. It is a particular honor to be named in connection with Judge Marcus. I tried many cases before Judge Marcus as an assistant United States attorney. He was always a pleasure to try a case in front of. In 1987, when I was appointed to the Court of Appeals, he made a point of attending my installation, and I was extremely honored by that. Only after my installation did he confide in me that he was intrigued by my reaction when I would receive an adverse ruling or an adverse verdict. He said, "John, it's like someone drove a stake through your heart." I will never forget the look on your face when the verdict would come in. Judge Bilby, of course, I've also practiced extensively before. He has always been extremely kind to me and my family and adds a great deal of luster to the federal bench. Judge Bill Browning I first met in 1973 when I was a city prosecutor, and Bill at that time was the president of the State Bar. Despite that obvious disparity in social status, Judge Browning made that trial against him a very pleasant, educational experience. Never have I so much enjoyed being trounced in a courtroom before. In 1987, when I was installed as a judge on the Court of Appeals, I asked that Judge Browning administer the oath to me. And even up to today, permitting me to hold this installation here in this facility, because the alternative was to have it in a courtroom where we would only be able to seat 100 people maximum and have anyone else view it on closed circuit. Even in that respect, Judge Browning has been just extraordinarily kind to me, and I'm very, very pleased to count him as a friend. I'm very honored, of course, to join the other very distinguished members of the federal bench, and many of whom have traveled here from Phoenix to attend this. I also look forward to working closely here in Tucson with Mo Allison, the bankruptcy judge, Nancy Fiora, and Ray Terlizzi. Friends all. I'd like to introduce my staff, if I can. Well, Chris Graham is easy. Chris Graham Wright is my court reporter, and Chris, of course, was Judge Marcus's court reporter. Judge Marcus also, very kindly, with the consent of Katie Higgins, offered to permit me to have Katie as my secretary, and I am extremely honored to have Katie as my secretary. I don't know where Katie is. There's Katie. Marilyn Hardiman will be my courtroom deputy clerk. And Marilyn, I'm sure many of you saw when you came in. And there is my law clerks will be Jerry Kasserman, who migrates with me from the Court of Appeals over to the federal court, and Kevin Kreschke. And if Jerry and Kevin are here, I'd very much like for them to speak. The problem with being a trial lawyer, of course, is that after one sits down, one remembers everything that they wish they would have said before. There are, again, as I said, so many people who have been so kind to me in this room, lifelong friends like Jack Arnold, and I'm very pleased that he and Lillian and among the judges who are recently retiring or retired judges, as well as, again, the members of the State Judiciary who are here today. I'm very grateful to President Bush and Senator McCain for selecting me and making this day possible. And I'm grateful to all of you. Thank you for coming here and joining in the celebration.